Yo, how's it going? Right, Epoch is out, the fourth single this year, featuring Anika Nilles on drums and Matt Cossey on keys. This track has been in the works for a long time. We all met through an organisation called Nexus ICA, which is a music institute here in the UK, in Coventry. We're all staff there, so I now have left, but at the time I was working there, we were like, oh, we should do a collab. Threw ideas around over lockdown and stuff like that, and life got really busy, stuff happened, and I never really got around to finishing it, but Anika did the drums way early on, and I've just been sitting on it and refining the sound and making it work with all these other electronic tunes. So this is Epoch, and hopefully you've listened to it by now, watched the video, but let's dive in. So we start off with this very atmospheric ambient kind of intro. And then we burst into the main track. So that's made up of a couple layers. Down here, we start off with these kind of textures. We've got some wind, some more, and some vinyl noise. This is from RC20. And those three together add that nice bed. We've got this air sound, and then an Ellis sample. Shout out Ellis. And this glider pad, which I believe is the Logic Retro Synth. A nice little patch there. And we've got an EQ here that's just making it nice and narrow in the mid-range. Some chorus, making it wider. Equalizer, just taking some of that mids out. This is the one from Waves Factory, a really good dynamic EQ. Loads of top, actually. And just some gain, make it a bit louder. And then these cool bits. And these obviously build a bit of tension. We've got these string risers. And there's this intro kind of bell theme. And that's a melody from the solo later on, but we'll get to that. And then we've got some string samples. Just, again, giving it that top end and adding a bit of tension, but it helps to add to the build and bring out the harmony a bit. Next, we have the lo-fi motif on top of that, so the main riff. And for that lo-fi sound, I'm pretty sure I used CLA effects. Yes, I did. So let's just solo this. Without anything. I'm fairly certain that's going to be a matchless amp on the Cortex. Kind of low gain. The EQ, rolling off all that top. Compression, just to pin it a bit. CLA effects, it's doing most of the heavy lifting. So we've got a filter on there, some drive, bit of room, reverb, and some slap. Just for that slapback delay. And then soothe. Getting rid of those resonant frequencies there. And then finally, another EQ, just to take out that note. All that high and hiss, which probably came through the filter. And that's the lo-fi sound. And I use that all over the place on this EP. And if you've watched any of these other videos, you'll know that I use samples all over the place. It just makes music seem a lot more 4D and more than just instrumental kind of layers. So there's all these effects going on. I'll try and break these down as quickly as I can. We've got this nice little loop. Another Ellis sample. This glassy Atmos sound. Another one of those air pads from earlier. A sprinkle sound. Again, use that everywhere. A reverse version of that Ellis sound going into all this. As well as some static, again from Ellis's sample pack. I think I made this around the time he brought that out. Cashmere Impact. Another Ellis sample from Orbit. Stutter. So this is going to be 16ths. Which I also used in the intro of Kryptonite. I use that everywhere. Similar thing, but on a G. And then a B flat. Some reverse cymbals and risers and some sweeps as well. Let's solo all these. And on top of that, all of those wind noises. And then I've called these mows because that's kind of how they sound. But they're old, like disco-y sounds, and they sounded very spacey and sci-fi. Just with a load of H delay. Love that. And Valhalla Vintage Reverb with an 11-second tail on it. And that just adds all together to make this really nice soundscapey intro section. And I can already hear some stuff I've missed out. So on top of that, we've also got some percussion stuff. So a little shaker, a clock, some lo-fi drums, and some snaps. And for the vocals in the intro, we've got my kind of ooh harmonies here, which is just, I think, a triad or something, or no, it's a dyad, one left, one right. But then there's this plugin, Contact Library, which I really like, which imitates, well, I guess samples real phrases, and she sounds like this. And that was really nice to layer on top and just add a bit of movement. And then the main track comes in. So, lots to talk about. Let's start with Anika's drums. She comes in with this drum fill. If I just solo the drum bus. And the drums in this are made up of Anika's actual drums that she sent me, you know, actual audio files of the kit, but then some samples and MIDI on top just to reinforce it and kind of match the aesthetic of the other tracks, which are very sampled and electronic. And then on top of that, we've also got some percussion stuff. So if I just solo these. And then before we get on to any of the instrumental layers, what's worth noting here is there's this instrumental pump channel, which is acting as a sidechain compressor for everything, because I wanted this to retain that electronic thing. And in electronic music, most stuff is sidechained around the kick. So this contains about 100 odd tracks. It's everything kind of musical and instrumental. So whenever there's a kick happening, all of these duck. So if I just solo all of those. You can hear there that everything's ducking with this track spacer. This is going to be ducking around instrument 5, which is the kick. So whenever the kick happens, it's ducking everything to kind of leave room for it. And it just made everything pump a bit better and feel a bit more aggressive. So that's that. And you'll hear that as we go on. But for now, I'm just going to bypass it because it can get annoying. And then some synth basses, which I'll solo one at a time. And also this old bass layer, which was from the demo, but it had this really nice mid-range character to it. Got a bit more of a glide on it. And then all those together create this massive bass sound. Got a load of keys layers. So on top of a few things that came in the intro, like that glider pad, we've also got some Foreman E-keys and some more kind of Daft Punk sounding ones. Just matching that chord sequence. The ES2 filter sound I use all over the place, just nice and bright. Just adding that sparkle on top. So Then we get some rhythm guitars. So we've got some Les Pauls left and right, just nice and aggressive. Audio from QC. It's probably going to be something like a Soldano amp model. I just wanted something kind of fuzzy and thick because everything else is so bright in the synths. It needed that mid-range thing. But just left and right, nothing too special. Acoustics, left and right, just to bring out the brightness and definition of the chord pattern. And then the leads. So we have the main guitar part and also the good old pan flute, because when I wrote this, it was just after my first EP that is this thing on EP, and I had loads of pan flute on it because I was and still am obsessed with the Pat Metheny group and that Lyle Mays ocarina kind of pan flute sound. And all the usual kind of effects. We've got some crash cymbals, all those risers and stuff going on in the background. But if I go over everything, it'll just take far too long, and this video will be 4 hours long. Then we get into the second section where the main leads come in. So we've got a completely different change of chord sequence. We go through loads of different pivot chords, and we have this. And that's that phaser distorted sound, very bright and abrasive, but I wanted it to sound like a synth. And kind of harmonize this Moog-ish layer. And we're using loads of pivot chords here underneath all that. So if I just solo the guitars and the keys. You can hear the kind of harmony behind those melodies. And then we're back into the intro. So a brief little throwback to the intro idea. And you'll notice I've got Anika's video here in the session because it was helpful to kind of visually see what she was playing and try and accent it. So all of those little fills, I wanted to make sure that they were audible and came out. And it just helps sometimes, you know, if you've got a feature of an artist like that, you want to do their part justice. So, and then we have another main theme, nothing really new happens. And then we get into this cool kind of modulated sounding section. So here, I wanted something completely different, complete left turn, change of scenery. We're now in F minor, and it's a different vibe. So we've got this upright piano. Old school bass, that cool glidey sound. And the track being called Epoch, I wanted some reference to time because Epoch refers to a time or place. And this is very reminiscent of my years at Nexus with this track floating around my head and my desktop. So I believe there's a clock sample in here somewhere, which is also in Kryptonite and rolling with it, I think. And musically, it's quite useful because it keeps the momentum up. And then in the main section, you heard that lo-fi 4 to the floor kick drum thing in the build-up. When I sent this to Anika initially, it had a very just straight thing, very 4 feeling, but she made it her own. But it's a motif of 5 notes in a 16th note rhythm. So she did this on top of it. And initially when I heard that, I was like, whoa, this feels so different. But I now really, really love it because it was really hard to play and track because it makes the motif that I was initially playing feel so much different. We've got all the chords outlining it. We've got some of those acoustics, but we've got the motif now is a left and right double track. And adding all the harmony in, let's add those bass layers in. Bring in the drums. In the second part, I wanted it to obviously go somewhere else. Anika goes to the ride and makes it a bit more interesting. Gives it a bit of flair. And just a feeling of it, you know, getting into that next gear. Bring that even further, I wanted something on top because, you know, the ear's got used to that motif by now. It needs something else to latch onto. So brought in the vocal library, and I've lost it again. This is such a big session, man. And I doubled that with a guitar, just doing 16th note octaves with a wah going back and forward with automation. And that is created with Tone King. So you'll see here the wah slowly rocks back and forth just to give it a bit of movement. A layer I haven't mentioned yet. Sorry, I'm missing stuff. There's just a lot going on. My retro harp, which has been used in everything I've done. I just like that sound. It's nice and twinkly. The arpeggiator. So this is, I'm pretty sure, doubling that motif. And some other cool layers here. There's this siren, if I just find that. And you can barely hear it in the track, but it's one of those, I would miss it if it wasn't there layers. And then we get into the more kind of catchy melody section. So this is fronted by the main riff layer, so the same sound. Quite bright, but it needed that. And similarly, it's doubled with a pan flute. I've got some chord changes going on, so let's just solo some of those because I like to hear chords by themselves. And a nice 5 chord there to bring in Matt Cossey's solo. So. Was a great addition. It really made the track actually feel a lot more Anika because Anika's got loads of those kind of key fronted lead sections, and even though this is predominantly a guitar-y track, it felt right. So Matt really nailed the brief on that one. Solo in that, we've got a few layers. We just kind of, I went around here and we tried a few things and almost composed a section there and then, and went with the one that we thought was best. If I just solo that. It's just straight from a Nord, I think stage 3, And I'm using Vocal Rider on this just to even out the level because some notes jump out a bit more than others. And then that is going into the main bus. Some EQ, just bringing out all the lows, bringing out some sizzle, taking some notches out, compressing the low mids and the high mids a bit. Soothe, EQ, and compression, and that's Matt Cossey solo. yeah, really nice addition. And we end up here with a cheeky little bar of 2/4. Which I didn't plan for at all. It just needed it in the way the solo felt. Maybe it's the way I wrote the chord sequences or something, but a nice little detail there for those who care about time signatures. And then we're going back to this more tranquil kind of state, similar to the intro. Back into that B section, but as a build-up. So Anika's doing some different drum parts. Let's bring her back in. It's really cool detailing on, you know, some hats, cymbals, and just really great, tasteful stuff. We go into the solo. So this is over the A section, the main riff. Let's find the guitar solo. I've lost it. And you'll see it's chopped up a lot, but by nature of the tone, it has a phaser on it. And sometimes, because you can't kind of program the frequency of the phaser, some notes just sounded better than others, and I'd have to do the right take and play it right, but also wait for the phaser to do its kind of movement at the right sound that sounded pleasing. So I would literally just redo, 2 beats sometimes of the solo just to get the right sounding take. I can play it all, I promise. And this goes on for a while. It's more like the final climax outro of the track, but then it's joined by this Moog layer in the kind of reprise of the B section. And this is where it gets fun. So these are kind of pivot chords. It's that minor 7 to the major 7, a semitone below. And the chords here get kind of fun. I wanted it to sound very, almost like too much is going on, but build to this big climax at the end of the track. So we've got loads of pivot chords. I think that's the right way of calling them, but I just think of it as a kind of chord movement to change keys. But we start off here in G sharp minor 7, going to G major 7. And then B minor 7 to B flat major 7. So this is now A minor 7 to A flat major 7, which is where the song starts off, because we started off on that A flat chord. Which you'll recognize. And then the track was nice and full circle, even though it went through all these tangents musically. I now realise that I've also chopped up this last note because I needed it to sustain. That's another reason why I did this. So guitars only have so much sustain, right? And I wanted this to sound like an infinitely sustaining note. And that's doubled with the MIDI, which goes on for about 8 bars or something as the song fades out. So what I did is literally just copy the note region and fade it, crossfade it. And also added a load of verb on it. And that's kind of the track. Like, there's loads going on. Most of it is either drums or effects, really. Like, I could go into more detail, but there's so much going on. If I went into detail for every layer, we would be here all week. And I'm chuffed with how it turned out. It definitely has a different character to the others on the EP, but it came out feeling really great. And Anika's happy with it. Matt's happy with it. So I'm happy with it. And thank you to you guys for listening to it. It's really cool to have new people come across my music through Anika and Matt. But yeah, I just really appreciate the kind words and that people are liking it. So, but yeah, loads more on the way. And thanks for sticking around and for watching. Cheers.